To begin with, a little bit about MatPath, for anyone who's not familiar. MatPath is a strategic design company, so we leverage the psychology of motivation and try and understand how people want to interact with products and services before actually designing for them. So it's important for us that the solutions we make are good for people as well as good for business. We do several things here, the whole gamut, right from design research to experience strategy, to visual design, to development, and really getting the solutions on the ground at our clients' locations. But my role here is more to that first column over here. I was very happy when Dan called me an experienced researcher because I want my title to be the senior experienced researcher and strategist. But I am a senior experienced strategist, and the kind of work that I do really evolves around trying to understand systems, companies, the different customer touch points that people have, kind of make sense of these web of ecosystems and really help to streamline them, make them more efficient, and make sure that it makes sense for customers to move through it sequentially. As part of that, as part of being service design, I also plan for behind-the-scene activities of at client locations, so whether that's a platform or a system or a team of people that is making something happen. So we do work on that, but it's very important that they remain behind the scenes and not visible to the customer, and the journey itself remains seamless and really delightful for the users. So it's a little bit about what I do over here. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about newcomers. So what is a newcomer? So there are different descriptions out there, but my talk today will focus mostly on people that come to America for the very first time. So there are more than 10 million immigrant and non-immigrant visas that are given out in America every year. I'm going to go out on a limb here and just make a random guess and say that about 1/3 of them, if I'm being sort of conservative, say that 1/3 of them may be coming here for the very first time. They might be coming here for many different reasons and staying for different periods of time, but they are coming. And this will continue to happen. What's going on for them? Are we as designers really looking at their experiences? Are we looking at what interactions they're having, how they're making decisions, how companies are meeting their needs? So this is where I started thinking about this and how we can step in and really try and make a better experience and try to understand the unique challenges that are faced by people coming here for the first time. So, as an ethnographic researcher and someone who spends her days studying processes, any inadequacies in systems, they stand out to me glaringly. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is just stuff that I have observed. But I also spoke to several people, because I didn't want to bias this conversation, and I spoke to several people and I heard their stories, I heard their challenges. And more importantly, I gathered those stories to help you understand today how different can be. Some of this may not be a surprise to you. Some of this may be a little bit of a surprise in the sense that you wouldn't expect such a challenge or such a different experience. But that's why I'm going to start with a few stories. So the first time here, the first time I came to the US was as a tourist in 2013. I came here to visit family. I'm a pretty independent person. I like to look around by myself, go to different cities. But one of the places that I went to and had the most stressful experience of my life was Chipotle. This was the first time I was stepping into a fast food restaurant in America. I don't know if you've got Chipotle fast food, but I guess it is. It moves fast. There's so many people there. There's a sign up there that tells you what you need to order, the sequence of things, and there are people behind you, and there's someone screaming at you from across the counter. And for the very first time, this is a very daunting experience for me. I didn't go back to Chipotle the rest of that trip. Somehow made it through ordering that food. I did go back there many years later after I had moved here, got used to the accent, got used to how restaurants work, and went back there. I loved the food, but I didn't go back there. It was too scary for me. This is Mr. Scalfi. He's from Italy. He is a business traveler. He comes to America at least twice a year to conduct business. He buys material from here and sells it in Italy. That picture you see of him there is from one of his first few visits over here, but that's not the story I'm going to talk about. It's just a really nice picture I have to insert. The story I'm going to talk about is the time he came to the White House. So this was on one of his business trips. He speaks very little English, so he usually travels with an interpreter. So he came to visit the White House. This was like back when you could still park in front of the White House and look around and come back to your car. So that's what he did. He looked around. And when he came back, he saw that his car was in the process of being towed. Turns out he had misunderstood the signs. He couldn't figure out what the signs were. When he had parked there, it was legal to park, and suddenly it became illegal, and he just didn't know what was going on. But that was not what surprised him the most. As he tells it, he said, policemen in Italy are really rude. So if they come and speak to you nicely, it means you're going to get out of what you just did. But the policeman that spoke to me here in America, he was really nice. He had a really long conversation with me. We connected on a really good level. But he still gave me a ticket at the end of it. And that's what really surprised him about the culture and the way things work over here. And this is Sandra. She's from Ghana. She works in a medical facility over there as a quality analyst. But she came to America to do her master's in public health from the Harvard School of Public Health. This wasn't the first time she was coming here. She came here as a tourist several times before. She actually moved here for about 3 years to study and then moved back. But as she describes it, she had a great experience. It was really good for her. Things were pretty smooth from what she described. It's very different from my own personal experience because the system where I'm from is completely different from the system here, but she was kind of familiar with it. She, being a really proactive person, read several books on how to maximize her time here and make the most of her Ivy League education, was really prepared for this journey that she was going to undertake. But what she didn't account for and what she did not realize was that everything here depends on networking and connections. And she actually says it, she's like, if I had to go back and do this again, from day one I would be out there speaking to people, making connections. And this may seem very obvious to everyone in the room, but for someone who's coming in from the outside and not used to this kind of a culture, this is a big shock. This is Indian. He came here to work a long time ago. He transferred with his company in India. He moved here with them. And he had a great experience here. He went back, he came back, got married, had a beautiful baby. Just about when he first moved here, things were very different for him. As he describes it, he was earning a lot of money. And for him, this was the exchange rate. It was great. He was like, I was not used to this kind of money back home in India. And suddenly I had all this extra money, and then I was thinking about it in rupees rather than in dollars. And then I realized I'm really not making that much money. I was running out of money every month and really spending more than I earned. So for him, making that mental leap from going from rupees to dollars was a lot, and he just did not realize. The other thing that surprised him was the amount of products on the shelf over here. You see a lot of nodding heads, and this is something I experienced as well. It was almost like parallax effect when I was walking into a grocery store and seeing all these different brands, none of which I'm familiar with, and just brands and options. And this is what surprised him and delighted him. He was just so excited to look at it and dive into all these different options that were available to him. What was also different to him was the work culture here. He said that it surprised him that people came to work at 9 o'clock and left at 5 in the evening. where he's from, people work till late at night. It is seen as a sign of dedication if you work till late at night, not if you come early in the morning. Only if everyone sees you working, then you're working hard. This is Vinay. He's from Thailand. Vinay moved here to be with his family. He applied for his green card in 1990 and got it in 2012. So his brother and his sister-in-law live here, and he moved here with his family. And he was one of the lucky ones because he had a lot of support from his family. As he describes it, it was Asian style. They were taking me everywhere, they were helping me get everything done, so they helped him with his social security work, with opening bank accounts, with everything. He even had a job within 1 week of moving here, which is miraculous. But what was different for him was communicating with people. He told me that he could not understand what people were saying. For him, there were so many accents that he had to get used to. There is not just the American accent, there is different ways that other immigrants speak. There's ways that African American people speak, and different Hispanic accents. And no one could understand him either. He speaks very little English, but whatever he speaks, he still speaks with a very heavy accent. But he managed, and he had a great time. But what did surprise me was that it took 5 years for him and his daughter to go see a doctor. They didn't have health insurance for 5 years of the time that they lived here, which was very surprising to me. And there are many other stories like that. There are people that come here for medical reasons. There are people that come here to conduct research, and they're just stories of people having a really tough time when they first move here. So let me just break that down a little bit, all these different stories, and what are really the problems, and what are the differences, what are the challenges that people face when something is new to them. There is vernacular differences. There is many people that move here speak in English. They just speak it as a second language, or they speak it differently. English evolved differently in all these. I can say for sure, I speak Indian English for a very long time. I spoke Indian English, and when I moved here, I started changing the way I spoke English. But if I still speak with family, I would use different words. I would change it up. The grammar, the kind of actual words that I use, and we've made up some words as well, so everything goes. One of the experiences I had was when I went to a restaurant to pick up my pizza, and I was at the counter, and the guy asked me, "Did someone ring you up yet?" And I was very confused because where I'm from, that means did someone call you on the phone, right? It does not mean, and I've never seen it used in a way that says that have you paid yet. And then he was nice enough to just understand, okay, she didn't understand, and he changed his words to say have you paid yet. But everyone is not that nice, everyone is not that understanding. There is differences in accent, and this is bound to happen. It's understandable. I have trouble understanding accents. American people have trouble understanding accents of the melting pot of the numerous people that come here from different countries. Sister and I always told me that he had trouble getting used to just being told that I can't understand you. And at some point, remember, there's two ways of saying this. There's, I'm so sorry I can't understand you, and there's, I'm so sorry I can't understand you. And unfortunately, many companies, services, staff, people that work there, they are not attuned to the fact that people speak differently, and they do not react very well when they hear accents. There is cultural differences. So this is a story of one of the people I spoke to who got followed from the restaurant because he didn't tip. Because where he's from, they don't really tip unless they're extremely happy with the service. So this is completely foreign to him, and he was really surprised that this happened. And cultural differences is something that is bound to crop up again and again for people that are in Europe, from South America, just different countries. So many cultural differences that happen. And there's cultural references. So this is something that surprised me a lot because I have never met I had never encountered so many cultural references in one conversation before I moved here, which is great, except for if you don't understand what's going on, because then you're just left out of the entire conversation. But if a brand or a company or a service is doing that, either in direct interactions or on platforms that they run or any communication that they make, it's a huge problem. There's differences in processes. And this one is this is bound to happen. Every different country works in different ways, and all these processes come in that you don't really realize. But one of the most absurd systems I've ever seen in my life is a credit history system. I'm sure it has a lot of sense to exist, but for people that are new, especially from countries that have a saving culture, it's difficult to understand that their credit history gets better the more credit that they take. It's a difficult concept to wrap their heads around. And here I'm going to tell you about not just newcomers having a problem with this kind of a process. I remember an interview that I was doing here during my time over here, and it was with a veteran, an army veteran. And he had joined the army when he was 18 years old. He had served many years, and he moved back here, got married. He and his wife thought they were adopting very good saving measures and financial habits. They never took a loan out. They saved money, bought a car. They saved money, bought another car. They never took a loan out, never used credit cards. And when I spoke to him, he told me I was trying to buy a house, but I can't buy a house because I have no credit history. And it's surprising that this person that lived here his entire life did not know that this system existed, and he's not the only one. So, one very important factor in all of these differences are very obvious, but something I really want to talk about today is the idea of a mental model. A mental model is a way a person's mind basically works, how they connect all these disparate pieces of information, how they think about things, whether sequentially or non-sequentially, and that eventually affects their behavior. And every one of us has a different kind of a mental model for a different topic or something we've encountered in our life. As designers, especially as a service designer, I use this very often in my work to understand what people are thinking, what questions they have, what steps they're likely to take next, what information are they connecting, and that helps for us to design for them. But inevitably, at some point in any conversation, in any design that we're making, two people interacting or a person interacting with an interface might have a different mental model to the thing that they're interacting with. So this is one of a really good illustration to understand what I'm trying to talk about. Someone's talking about an iceberg, and the other person is thinking about the same thing, but it's completely different. They're still thinking about frozen water, but completely different mental model of it. So to talk about that a little bit more, think about if you're designing a shoe and you're trying to make up a really awesome shoelace for this that's going to change the way that this works, and you look at all these different options and you have ways to enhance the performance, to enhance the look, to put in great colors and to make a unique identity. What if you're thinking of all of these things, but the person that you're designing for has never worn a shoe in their life? What if they've only worn flip-flops their entire life? They have no idea what a shoe is, what a shoelace is. And that is what I'm trying to tell you about, talking about newcomers and the fresh mental model and no prior experience that they often come to a product or a service with. So what does that really mean for us as designers? As designers or CX people, if you're in the room, what are we really trying to do when we're trying to design? First of all, we're trying to meet a business need. Inevitably, we are making sure that whatever we're designing for remains sustainable, and one of the ways that it does that is by having happy customers, having happy users. So that is one of the primary strategies that we have. But to do that, we are trying more and more in the face of rising costs to make sure that people self-serve and they can achieve tasks by themselves. We don't have people always walking them through everything, and they're able to get everything done that they set out to do. And we're trying to make them avoid errors, make sure that they don't do something that is not in their best interest or just completely mess up some paperwork or some process that leads to a big round of let's fix this is going to take time and phone calls, and in the end just lead to like a really frustrated customer who is unable to interact with that product or service. So these are the things that we are trying to do and things that we're trying to avoid. To do this, very often we talk about being intuitive. Intuitive in what we do, in how we think, and how the customer is going to interact with our product or service. But think about this for a minute. This is a very famous thing. I have no idea who said it. There's a lot of debate online about it. So the only intuitive interface is the nipple. After that, it's all learned. This is my nephew Avir. This picture is taken at a gaming arcade. And at this time, he had just turned 2 or was about to turn 2, and this was one of his first visits at a gaming arcade. I was amazed. He knew exactly what button to press, what lever to pull, where to throw the ball, which hoop belonged where. He had never seen this place before, but he knew exactly what he was doing. He climbed in all the wrong places, yes, but he knew how to interact with the games that were there. And at first I was like, wow, can it be that a gaming arcade is the best, most intuitive place in the world because even a 2-year-old can figure it out? But then I thought about it and I realized that he is also relying on a prior mental model. He's had all these toys with buttons and levers and things to put in places, and he's had those at home. He's not had them in a gaming arcade, he's not interacted with that in a gaming arcade environment, but he's interacted with something that has set him on the path of understanding what this is. So, with just understanding how things are different from newcomers, and I hope I'm able to illustrate that with some of the examples that I gave you, but where does this become extremely important and more important? I think that it's important in every circumstance, and it's definitely a lens that we should at least stop and think about, whether we should adopt it or not for what we're working on. But there are some sectors in which it becomes extremely important to design for newcomers in the sense that they're just new to the country. Government. Inevitably, a newcomer is going to interact with the government, whether it's forms that they're filling, or people that they're interacting with, or places that they have to go to. It blows my mind that USCIS still has, they blow my mind in every possible way, but they have forms that have addresses in the US format. So street address 1, street address 2, zip code, etc. Not many countries in the world have addresses in those formats. We have completely different formats. The address from where I'm from is at least 6 lines long, and they won't fit in any of those forms. And it hasn't occurred to them to stop and think about their audience and think about where they're coming from and design for their needs. Any federal or state service, and I'm talking about the R&B, I'm talking about the local transportation, anything which is a civic sort of facility that is provided to people, you're bound to interact with them. One of the things that surprises me is the metro system and how different it is from the subway system, sorry, that's what you're saying, and how different it is from New York to Boston to San Francisco, the public transport system. Everything is different. There is no parity in systems. There's nothing that you can learn from one place and carry over to the other one. In the sense that the express or the non-express, the numbers that are there, the signage that is used, if you've learned one system, ideally, in an ideal world, you should be able to understand how to use the other systems very easily with a very low learning curve. Health. There are people who come to America specifically to get health care. And America is one of the most complicated healthcare systems in the world. I do a lot of work in health and I know how complex this system is. And I'm sad to say that I know more about the system because of my work than an average American does. And the system is very, very complicated, especially for a newcomer. I still haven't gotten my husband to go and take his annual physical because he doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know what his insurance is, he doesn't know what he has to pay, he doesn't know how to find a doctor. And even though I guide him, it is too daunting a task to undertake. Finance. Everyone at some point has to interact with a financial company, and this is a high-stakes situation. You cannot make a mistake in your financial planning. And there's new jobs. There's 401k, there's HSAs, there's FSAs, and this is just a whirlwind of systems that you have to try and understand. And our financial companies trying to do, they are trying to do a lot more to help people understand that. But how basic are they getting at really trying to understand if those people who don't understand anything about it, can they navigate it? And real estate is a stressful and daunting task for anyone to take on, especially if you've never bought a house in the US or don't know anyone else who's ever bought a house in the US. Hospitality is another one. There's so many tourists coming in. People have gone to stay in a hotel or Airbnb or any other places. Retail, people come here to shop. They want to shop in America. It's the mecca for that. People come here to travel and higher education. Higher education is one of those really big ones where this is helpful. There's an entire industry of people that make money off of just helping people apply to colleges. That's it. That's all they do. They help people apply to colleges. That's how complicated the system is. And any brand with a global audience, it helps to use this design sense for any brand that is looking at not just American audiences, but audiences all around the world. There are obviously customizations and language alterations, etc. that are done, but in general, the feel, the interaction should somehow remain consistent. So this manifests in different ways. I'm not just talking about user interfaces, I'm talking about signages, I'm talking about spaces, content, I'm talking about processes, staff training, just thinking about the entire system and whether they're meeting the needs of these unique challenges of newcomers. So let's look at some examples. I put together this list of things that I think are a good starting point. They have a bit to go, but they're a good starting point to try and understand the general direction that it's good to take when trying to design for someone who really doesn't know anything about what they're trying to do. Boston.gov. I don't know if any of you use this website, but it's an excellent website. It's just excellent for anything that you're trying to achieve. The screenshot you see there is of the time that I got married at Boston City Hall, and I didn't know how to get married in America. I didn't know anyone who had gotten married in America. I didn't know anything. I didn't have to ask a single person because the website told me everything that I needed to do sequentially, broke everything down into small steps, talked about when I need to go there, talked about who I need to speak on the phone, what printouts I need to bring, how much money I need to bring in cash or in check. Every single thing was explained really well, and the general UI is beautiful as well to navigate and to understand what's most prominent and what you should pay attention to. It also serves up information. So if you're looking for information for a car and you don't know what to look for, it gives you all the different options. So if you actually own a car, should you want to know about paying a parking ticket or you want to appeal a parking ticket, it gives you those options so you don't have to go looking for things that you don't know you should be looking for. The other example I'm going to give you is Friends. Friends is a show that is just generally really well made, has great characters. I'm sorry if some of you here don't like Friends, but it has wide international appeal over people of different ages. And it talks about this group of people going through life situations that are just common for everyone all over the world. But in my opinion, what makes Friends really successful all over the world is that it uses very simple language. It doesn't use complicated language. It uses minimal cultural references. There is no political commentary. And for people who don't speak English very well, there is prompted laughter. So you know when you can join into the conversation, you can join in with your friends and laugh at a joke. And that sets the stage for something that everyone can understand and everyone can enjoy. This is an example from Lavagon. It's a content strategy conference that I'd gone to last year, and it really stood out to me, this kind of work that was being done. So this presentation was by John and Lindsay, and she's a content strategist at Google. And they did this international study on how people really reacted to phrases and words that they use on the different Google platforms. So this is one of those examples, and they were trying to get a gauge of feedback to remember that Google will never ask for your password. And they showed it to different people all over the world, and one of these reactions really surprised me and stood out to me. People in Russia said that remember that is wording that we associate with Soviet propaganda. It has no role to play in modern communication. You would not know that unless you went looking for that information. It's a seemingly harmless phrase that everyone can use, and the think is simple, but if you've not done your research with your audience, you would never know something like that could actually turn off a part of your audience. This is another example of, really not necessarily for newcomers, but just first-time users in general. So Second Life is a gaming platform that allows people to have this online avatar and interact with each other in this online world. So what happened was that when they made this gaming platform, they didn't realize that when an absolute new user, first-time user, would come into the platform, they would get harassed by the users. They would come in, they would verbally abuse them, they would throw nets around them so they could not move, and it just led to them leaving and not using the game ever again. So the designers realized that this was a problem that they needed to do something about. So they created a safe environment for them. So every first-time user was dropped into a sort of orientation world, and they were just dropped in there by themselves, and they were coached through each of the things that they could do on the platform. So change their appearance, fly, move, and in very simple ways taken through each of those motions. So when they were actually sent out into the real world, they knew what they needed to do and they weren't taken by surprise. And this really helped them to overcome that initial fear of getting used to this platform. This receives A for effort. It's not the most beautiful, but this breaks down in every detailed step how to navigate the New York City subway, how to look for signs, how to realize whether you're on the right platform, how to know whether you're going for the express train or the local train. Just breaks it all down, and I love it. I wish it was better designed. But just the fact that somebody thought to put all this information down in a way that is accessible, especially in a place like New York that has so many tourists visiting every day, this is amazing. This is something that I think that everyone dealing with a large number of newcomers should strive towards, to really explain everything, things that you wouldn't think need explaining. This is one of the projects that we did at Manpower. I can't give you too many details about it, but it was a project to understand how first-time washing machine buyers or any large appliance buyers go through the entire process of buying it, and the questions they have, and the confusion, and the sort of stress that comes with making this major purchase decision. And we helped GE to design this streamlined process to help those first-time buyers answer their questions, as well as create a system that really supported them. This is another example of something that Manpower worked on. It's for a medical bill. Medical bills are generally confusing, so the team redesigned the entire medical bill to make it more understandable. This part stood out to me because it talks about help with paying the actual bill, and it gives the user an option to understand where they fall. So it asks all the questions. It doesn't expect the user to ask the question. it gives them a path to follow and helps them land on where they can actually reach, what kind of help that they can get. And all the information is here. If you see on the right side, it has information about the federal poverty guidelines. It doesn't say, okay, go check where you are on the federal poverty spectrum. Here is all the information for you, and this is what you need to do. It really puts it there for someone who doesn't know, has never encountered this before, doesn't even know that they can get help with their medical bills. This is extremely helpful. So, coming down to what we can do as designers, I've just put together a few tips, and I'm sure this is not comprehensive. I'm sure there's a lot more we can do, and I'd love to open up that discussion at the end of the talk, at the end of the hour we have together. So firstly, empathy. As designers, we're used to doing that. We always strive, or we should be striving to put ourselves in the shoes of our users. But ask yourself, how would you react if you were in a new country and you didn't know the system, you didn't know people, you barely spoke the language, or you didn't understand what people were saying? What kind of help would you want? Where would you go looking for that kind of information? And who would you really expect to stand by you and explain to you what needs to be done? Whether it's friends, family, brands, is this a chance to build a really long-lasting relationship with your customer? Because they are going to truly cherish any kind of support that they can get at this early stage of coming to the US. And of course, don't forget about research. Try and early on in your projects understand whether it's important to speak with this audience. Is your product or service going to interact with this audience at any point? Or are there just several people in general who've lived here their entire life who are completely new to what you're designing? Is this the first time that they're buying a home? Is this the first time that they're investing? This is a great lens to apply to all people when you're trying to understand how basic do you need to go in explaining how things work. Several people that I've worked with, especially in the health space, are thinking about translation and interpretation, and that's amazing and it's great. It's a great start, but it's not enough. Like I said earlier, several people who move here speak English, they just speak it differently, or they speak it as a second language. So that is a great start, but not enough. And avoid idioms, grammatically ambiguous words or phrases. And this is again true of all users, because something that you think is really clever and creating a connection with a customer might actually either A, put them off, they might not like what you just said, or B, they might not just understand what you've tried to say to them. And this could be a difference between ages, it could be a difference between where they are in the US, it could be their cultural background, it could be different things that could lead to people reacting in all these varied ways. And avoid cultural references wherever you can. I have a good friend here who's a content strategist, and she's one of the most colorful writers I've known, and she's a beautiful writer. But every time she gives me something which is written in with cultural references, I completely burst her bubbles, and I'm like, no, let's not do this. Let's make it more basic. Let's make it more accessible to people who don't know what you're talking about. Train customer-facing staff to understand multiple accents. If your product or service relies on speaking with people from different backgrounds, this is a must. I cannot tell you the number of times I have spoken with a customer service representative, or even people that I know that have spoken with a customer service representative who cannot understand me. And like I said earlier, they're not always nice about it. So the other thing there is to train against accent bias. We're training against racial bias, I can see that. But very often people, and this is a fact, people hear an accent and they immediately think a lower IQ or a lower education level or a lower status in society or anything else, you know. But it's important to train against accent bias for any product that interacts, for any staff that interact with your end consumers. Lately, I've been seeing a trend of voice first. This is great. I know this is a direction that, in general, the industries are going in, and people feel like making voice first interactions is going to make a better customer experience. But if you're not Google or Amazon, you better understand what the person is trying to tell you, because there are going to be many accents that are going to be heard by that system. It's surprising to me that no one has thought about this. And there are several companies that do not give you the option of keying in where you want to go in the idea treatment. You have to speak it. That is bad for two reasons. One, for people who have an accent and the system cannot understand them. And two, for if you're in a crowded place and you do not want to scream your social security number into the phone, you want to type it in, it just makes more sense to go that way. When in doubt, assume that the person you're talking to, interacting with, does not know what you're talking about. Use that space to explain it. Take your time to explain it. I've heard things around, what about if this makes a horrible experience for the rest of the users? So that's a very fine balance to strike. Because yes, it's possible. If you explain something in a platform that someone is using again and again and knows really well, if you explain it every time, it's going to get off-putting to them. So it's important to give them the option of crossing it out or just going in there looking for more information, of just having the UI not so in your face, but having that option there to understand more if you want to understand. Break down complex steps into as small pieces as you can. So the first part of this is really to understand the journey and to figure out for ourselves, what is this journey? People do well when they know, when people are encountering something new for the very first time in their life, it helps them piece together, okay, so this is going to happen, and then I have to get that together, and then this is going to happen, and then, because they've never done it before, and this is not something that they're used to. So if after they've waited for 2 months, and you tell them that, okay, now we need this piece of paper that is going to take them 4 weeks to get, it's just a really bad user experience. Educate users whenever you can, but try not to detract from the main task. My husband and I went shopping for a diamond ring about a couple of months back, and neither one of us knew anything about diamonds. We went into the store, and the lady there understood very quickly that we had no idea what we were doing there. So she took her time. She pulled out all this information. She pulled out brochures. She pulled out very carefully crafted information to teach us about diamonds in the process of selling us a diamond. And she crafted it beautifully together. And it's not as easy to do that when you're working on a UI or an interface, but it is entirely possible to not take the user out of that main task that they're doing and just build in that education into that flow that they're trying to work on. And proactively surface things they may not know. If I had a penny for every time in research a participant told me, I don't know what I don't know. This is like something I hear over and over again. And especially for complex systems, you have to tell people that this is the information they need to have, this is the questions they need to ask. Tell them what they need to ask, because they're likely not to know. And I'm sure there's a very technical term for this, but I don't know what it's called. I'm going to call it dip your toe in environments, and it's a little bit like the Second Life example that I talked to you about, where you give people a chance to play around with something, play around with the system, play around with the platform before actually investing in it. And speaking of investing, one of the very good examples of this is, I think it's Stash that does it, or Doe, that they let you use fake money to invest and see whether it actually grows with the market and you actually get anything back. So before you actually go all out and invest all of that money, you have an option of trying it out. And it's a great way to remove that initial barrier of getting over that fear of trying something out for the very first time. And consider a different experience or a tool for a first-time user. This is not always possible, but if you think that you are in an industry that requires this, again, I'm going to go back to house buying because that's something people do for the first time very often. Think about this and ask the person, is this the first time you're doing this? And take them down a guided path. And there's several people who are trying to do this, trying to achieve that master list of things that must happen, which gives them a step-by-step breakdown of what to expect and what to do at each step. And that is a great way to take newcomer users down a path that will make them feel safe, that will reduce the errors in the action that they take. And consistency is key. If you have 4 or 5 different products that you're working on, but they're sort of related, don't give the user the mental task of getting used to one platform and completely changing the interactions or the placements or the content or the tone for the next one. Let it be consistent. Let it be as consistent as is possible, so that you remove that hurdle of relearning how things work for that new platform or tool that they're using. And lastly, try. If you can, build diversity in the team, especially if you think that your product or service is going to be meeting the needs of people that are culturally diverse, that might not be from here, or your product is reaching out to various parts of the world. Just having those diverse perspectives can mean a really much better product and experience. So, we talked about newcomers, and I really want to drive home this point, and several of you have probably heard about accessibility and how that's important for design, because you're just including more people. You're not turning off any potential customers. And people who are disabled by their situations or by their cognitive impairment or visual impairment are still able to interact with your product or service. And it's widely known that if you design for accessibility, it also makes the experience better for other people who are, texting while driving a car or trying to buy a product while doing that, or in a loud environment. It just helps to make the experience for all people better for all people. So similarly, if you try and use this design lens of designing for newcomers, just people who are completely new to a product or a service or a process or a system, it will help make the experience better for everyone, people who've lived here their entire lives.